There are things that are under our control and others that are not. Opinions, preferences, desires, and aversions. In a word, everything that is inherent. Our actions are under our control. On the other hand, the body, wealth, reputation, authorities, in a word, everything that is not inherent to our actions, is beyond our control. This is how the manual or guide to life of the famous Greek philosopher begins. If you want to live a fulfilling life without an excess of soul afflictions, you must understand that there are things under your control and others that are not. Our duty is to spend our energy on what is under our command and ignore what is not. One of the greatest problems a human being can face is the opinions and judgments of other people. It is practically inevitable to be affected negatively or positively by them. If you truly want to avoid being affected, you must understand that the opinions of others, insults, or any type of personal attack are not under your control. In the Manual of Life, we learn how to act in the case of being the object of an offense. Therefore, the purpose of this video is to extract the teachings from the famous Manual of Life in order to achieve a mental state that allows us to reduce or eliminate all kinds of suffering arising from the judgments of others. Through 7 teachings or principles extracted from Epictetus's Manual of Life, you will learn why you shouldn't worry about external feelings and how to achieve a state where opinions cannot harm you. If you're new here, consider subscribing so you don't miss out on all the valuable content we're preparing for you. Number 1. Insults or offenses. Epictetus says, "Remember that he who insults or strikes is not insulted, but rather his own judgment that these actions are offensive. Therefore, if someone provokes you, keep in mind that it's your own opinion that is disturbing you in the first place. Try not to be swayed by appearances, for once you gain time and calm down, it will be easier to control yourself." One of the keys to not caring about the opinions of others is to understand that the insult or offense is not inherently harmful. The emotional discomfort that accompanies the insult actually comes from how we process that insult. When someone belittles you or disrespects you, think that this insult will only harm you if you allow it. If you react negatively, the true worth of a person should be measured by how much they can tolerate negativity. Unfortunately, life is like that. When you feel insulted or offended, ask yourself, do I want to win or lose? Do I want to yield to what I cannot control? Let me draw a parallel with Stoicism and pleasures. If we want to stop being influenced by them, we must not fight against desire, for desire will never disappear. The difference lies in how we process that desire, if we completely surrender to it or ignore it. In this way, if you manage not to be disturbed by the insult, the satisfaction you will feel afterwards will make you someone superior and capable of advancing steadfastly through adversity. Surely, you're thinking of that time when a negative comment ruined your day or week despite your efforts. Let me tell you that I understand how you feel, as everyone has been in that situation at some point. If this is your case, I recommend you keep watching, as in the next principles, we'll address self-control. Number 2. Maintain firm purposes. In this principle, we must understand that if we want to avoid being affected by the opinions of others, it's as follows. If you have the firm purpose of understanding philosophy, prepare yourself from the start to be ridiculed and suffer mockery from the crowd. Prepare to hear people say, "Suddenly he became a philosopher," or "Where does this arrogant attitude come from?" Make sure not to adopt that arrogant attitude and stay firm in things that contribute to your well-being. Remember, if you remain steadfast in your position, the same people who used to ridicule you will end up admiring you. But if you let yourself be convinced by others, you'll be ridiculed twice, those who wanted to become philosophers. But even if you don't want to become a philosopher, this principle proposed by the Greek can be applied to any other aspect of our lives. This principle is essential as many people neglect their true talents just to please dissenting voices. What Epictetus tells us is that if we allow our purpose to be influenced by the fear of others' opinions, we won't fail because we tried and didn't succeed, but because we yielded to the opinions of others. We shouldn't interpret this as a failure, but as a real problem. When a person gives up just to avoid social conflicts or to prevent others from opining about them, it's worth persevering, even if there is mockery or questioning for a while. After all, by moving forward, you'll be living according to your own nature. I recommend you think about this whenever you need to make a decision in your life. Consider your priorities and understand the true reason behind your choices. Number 3, don't worry if someone speaks ill of you. Don't let the idea of living in dishonor and being nobody anywhere worry you. For if not receiving honors were a bad thing, then others would have the power to make us unhappy. And that's not how things work. The truth is that you are only someone in things that are under your control and that depend on your decisions. This principle is indeed very relevant in our days. How many times have you done something you really didn't want to just to gain someone's approval, especially on social media? Social validation on these platforms can be like poison to a person. We should ask ourselves, is it worth changing who we really are just to get a little satisfaction? Is it worth putting our emotional well-being in the hands of others? My answer is clear, no. I recommend you reflect on this, as we've all been caught doing something that embarrasses us, but isn't malicious at some point. Why care if they laugh at you or marginalize you? In terms of popularity, do you truly believe your happiness depends on how popular you are? If you live like that, you'll be in constant conflict as your happiness isn't in your hands. Therefore, you'll live in a constant state of tension, changing your essence not to lose status. One of the main points of Stoicism is to care only about what is under your control and become imperturbable regarding what isn't. Regarding insults, remember that nobody can hurt you unless you allow it. If someone harms you or speaks ill of you, remember that they act believing that they are right to do so. It's not possible for everyone to act according to what you consider right, but it doesn't seem right to them. So if someone judges you based on a false appearance, it's them who harm themselves with their mistake. Therefore, tolerate the person who insults you with patience and repeat to yourself, that's just what they think. Number 4, exercise high control. For an insult to turn into an offense, as Epictetus said, we must have the same respect for our mind as we do for our body. I'm sure you wouldn't allow a stranger to enter your house every day knowing the threat that would pose. Yet, when we receive an insult and process it as an offense, we allow that person to enter our mind and stay there for a few days. Because then, we allow strangers into our mind when we would never let them into our homes. To achieve a state where we ignore the negative feelings arising from an offense, discipline and self-control must be accumulated. Apply this to all situations in life, including with family. When you're angry, control that emotion, as it will prevent much unnecessary suffering and make you feel more at ease with yourself. Believe me, this will make a significant change in your life. Number 5, act according to your best judgment. We shouldn't be ashamed of being seen acting according to our principles, even if others may form a wrong idea of what we're doing. If we're acting correctly, why fear others' wrong judgment? This also applies to the use of social media, where we often allow our happiness to depend on popularity or validation from others. This leads us to act to please them, instead of following our own path. Number 6, don't worry if someone speaks ill of you. If someone harms you or speaks ill of you, remember that they act assuming they are right to do so. But it's not possible to think that everyone would act according to what seems right to you, but not to them. Therefore, if they are judging from a false appearance, it's them who harm themselves with their mistake. Based on these principles, tolerate the person who judges you with patience, and on each of these occasions, Tell yourself, number 7, no one can hurt you. Through this 7th principle, we analyze the motivation of the sender of the insult. And what it tells us is that we can't expect everyone to act according to what you consider right or according to your worldview. This way of thinking can be very harmful. We should consider is it really viable to believe that everyone has the same worldview as you? Thinking like this is quite naive. Therefore, if someone insults you, believing they know the truth about you, deeply consider the following. You know who you are. You know what you think. You know why you act and why you do what you do. The only knower of the truth about you is yourself. So in the case of a stranger insulting you in some way, you must ask yourself the following. Did I act wrongly? If the answer is no, ask yourself, can I enter their mind and understand the reason for the insult? It's evident that you can't. Therefore, in the case of having acted correctly and facing ignorance about the motivation of the insult, you should be content, as you are the person in the world who knows yourself best. In the case of having acted correctly, you shouldn't carry the burden of regret. As Epictetus said regarding the person who insults you, that's how it seemed to them. To conclude, I would like to end with the following lesson from Epictetus. How much longer do you think you'll delay becoming worthy of the highest progress and following the teachings of reason? You have already received the philosophical principles with which you should be familiar. What other master are you waiting for to begin improving? You are no longer a teenager, but an adult. So if you continue neglectful, lazy, and constantly postponing things, adding excuse after excuse and putting off the day you will dedicate to yourself, life will pass by while you remain ignorant until the day of your death. What did you think of the video? Let me know your opinion in the comments. If you're new here, be sure to subscribe to embark with us on the paths of wisdom. Goodbye.